From the hallowed halls of Epic Productions and Epic Podcast Studios here in the Profit Center, Epic Financial Strategies here in Red Bank, New Jersey, we are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence in the constant pursuit of creating limitless and infinite sales meetings. And tonight is absolutely no different. We are joined by Justin. I'm going to hope that I pronounce your last name appropriately. It's Justin Roethlingshoefer. Is that right, Justin?
Nailed it. You're 1 for 1, my man.
I am 1 for 1. That is the best batting average I'll ever have in my life, right? But
hey, you only have to bat 33% to get into the Hall of Fame. So you're on your way.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even close to that. Trust me, my college baseball career lasted about 15 minutes. So, but we are joined this evening, folks, with Justin Roethlingshoefer, who is a global influencer. He is a celebrity coach, coaches athletes, coaches on data, just doing massive, massive things in all aspects of coaching and social media influence. And Justin, it's such a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
No, David, it's a pleasure. I always love really authentic interviews and just quality content. So happy to be here and bring whatever value I can.
Thank you so very much. And I want to thank all of our continued support that we have from our guests. If you have a question for Justin at any point during the session this evening, please put it into the chat and I'll be sure to get to it. But Justin, why don't you introduce yourself to the good folks who join us on Infinity X every single week? To know where you're going, you have to understand where you come from. So where did it all start for you?
Yeah, I love this question because it's an easy answer for me. It started back when I was 13 years old and I was playing hockey. I grew up in Canada. You were born with skates on, and I wanted to be an NHLer. That was the big, that was the anxious goal that was just ingrained for me at a young age. And 16-year-old to really stand out. And I said to my father, I was like, "What's going on? Like, what do I have to do to create some sort of change here?" And he said, "Son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid." And it was that moment that it really changed my mindset, literally at 13, of everything that I do for the rest of my life is about being consistent. What is it that's going to get the most consistent version of me every single day so that I can optimize my ability to get paid? And that's not just financial. That's from a fulfillment standpoint. That's from an impact standpoint. That's from a quality of life standpoint. And it just might happen to be financially in some situations, but payment comes in all of these different forms. But when we lead with consistency, that's what we are searching for. And so that's really where it started for me, and ultimately ended up dictating my journey over the next 25 years to dive into recovery, dive into heart rate variability, dive into performance optimization, dive into all the education that I went through in getting my doctorate and getting my different certification spaces, and then being and working with NHLers and different NHL teams, and then Olympians, and then some of the best entrepreneurs in the world, and ultimately starting my own business. And then bringing my fiance into the mix, and ultimately now selling our first company, and then growing it now into a global brand. And it's been something that has been fulfilling and ultimately impactful. But it all started with just what my dad would have probably thought is just a harmless comment of, "Hey, instead of looking at me and saying, just work harder, it's get a little bit more consistent with what you're doing."
That's incredible. What a message. And it's so universal in any business that you're in, right? Consistency is so key. Are you showing up each and every single day in a peak state, right? Tony Robbins talks about that all the time, right? And, if you're showing up consistently in a peak state, regardless of how you feel that day, number one, you have the chance to start your day over again anytime you want, right? But that the day is going to have greater micro distinctional impact, in little chunks at a time. That's amazing. Now, when you look back at that advice, because that's unbelievable advice to try to process as a 13-year-old kid, right? When you look back at getting that advice as a 13-year-old, how did that sink in for you into your nervous system?
That's an awesome question. And literally the very next, I was always a very cerebral kid, somebody that, and now having dove into some of the genetical processes and the things and certain personality traits, I know that have an addictive personality. Yep. It's ingrained in me. And so as with anything, I became obsessed with it. When my friends were reading comic books, playing video games, I was reading medical journals and everything that I could get my hands on when it comes to recovery and performance. At 14 years old, sitting and reading the Journal of Strength and Conditioning, reading the New York Times medical section, like all of these things is like anything I could get my hands on. At 14, I'm sleeping with heart rate monitors, sleeping with brainwave sensors, tracking my HRV every day I wake up. And understanding what I need to eat every single day, experimenting with my body, how hard can I push it, where can I make certain changes on my sleep routines, on my night routines, on what everybody's now calling biohacking, which is really just applied science. And that was the 14-year-old version of myself. And quite frankly, I got so obsessed and took it so far one direction that it actually drove me into anorexia for about 4 years, where I had major body image issues. But in doing so, it grew my knowledge base so great. And yes, I had to go through that, because you could have asked me anything at 14, 15, 16 years old that many 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds would have had no clue about, who have spent their entire life in the health and wellness industry. And it was because of the way in which I was obsessed with it, and to a state of sickness. Not that I was executing the right way, but I had the fundamental information. And that's where I really drove this passion for, we're drowning in information today. We're drowning in information everywhere, especially in the health and wellness industry. And it's not about information. It's about how do we apply that information. We don't have an information issue. We're actually drowning in it. Let me see if I can turn this back on. Lights go out on you in here. But we're drowning in information. And because we're drowning in information, we don't know how to apply it in an appropriate way. But the moment we figure out how to personalize it and how to put it into practice, that changes the game. And that's where so many of us are missing the boat, is we don't know what turns to take. We don't know what tweaks to make. Everybody talks about, like, if you get 1% better every single day, imagine what that's going to be in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 years. Well, how do you know the tweaks you're making are actually the right ones? How do you know that the work you're putting in is actually appropriate? And it's not just about figuring out what Jeff Bezos is doing, or what Elon Musk is doing, or what Oprah's doing. No, what are you doing? What's Parker Russo doing? What's Jade doing? What's David doing? What's Justin doing? What are these people doing? Because each and every single one of us is different. And we have to own our different. And if we don't own our different, we ultimately leave out what makes us great. And if we're unable to do that, it puts a wedge between us and consistency, whether we love to think about, whether we want to think about that or not.
Incredible message. We are Infinity X, stage and microphone to human excellence. This is Justin. I'm just going to call you Roth, brother. Is that what your ecosystem calls you, Roth, or no?
Yeah, you know what? I've been called a lot of things, and so that one's okay.
This is Justin Roethlingshoefer, and you can find him on Instagram at Justin Roth. Justin, YouTube channel as well. YouTube.
I do, yes. It's just my name, Justin Roethlingshoefer. Have a YouTube channel. Have hours and copious amounts of content on there. So feel free to reach out and subscribe.
Amazing, guys. Reach out, check it out, subscribe to that. We have a note that came in actually from Matt Crump. Hello, Justin. Just wanted to say hello and stop by to support you here. Keep the pedal to the floor. I love that, Matt. Thank you very, very much for that. But man, I mean, listen, for all of you entrepreneurs, if that message didn't land with you, because I mean, there's what better time than right now, right? We're moving into a new year. The clock has been reset, right? You have an opportunity to scale your business upward, to monitor and measure what worked and what did not work in 2021, and create based upon analytics of data, right? And based upon trends, the things that worked well with your business and the things that didn't work well. I know I've gone through that personally over the past month, but I mean, Justin, what an incredible, what an incredible sense of self-awareness at such a young age. Now, when you were at, 14, 15, and reading what you were reading and practicing what you were practicing, did you still have the end in mind as playing professional hockey, or like what did you identify as what you wanted your career path to look like at that point?
Yeah, so that was still the end goal. And quite frankly, what's amazing is even with the obsession and having the body image issues, the anorexia and everything else that came, like, and we're talking like, guys, I went from like 170 to 98 pounds. Like it was a drastic flip from 14 to 16. I was still playing hockey at the highest level. I was still performing. I was still a 4.0 student. I was still doing all these things. And contrary to everything that you could have ever imagined, from what the doctors were saying, from what people were telling me, the psychologists I went to, the people that my parents took me to try and help me get like out of this time. It was one of those moments that, and I still honestly attribute that to, like, it sounds backwards, but I attribute that to the mental toughness that I have today, where it's like, I would literally starve myself because I was fearful of certain things. And I would go to bed and have a cold shower in Canada in the middle of January where it's minus 25, have a cold shower, sleep only with a sheet because I knew that it would ultimately have a higher metabolic result within you. And you're supposed to optimize your sleep and all of these types of things, and taking it so far to the extreme that I put myself through like literally hell for 3 or 4 years in a very unhealthy way, but was still able to perform and drive through because of certain habits that I still elicited and still drove for and still looked at numbers and still was able to optimize certain things. Now, was there certain decrements to my body over a long period of time? 100%. Would I ever advise that or do something differently? 100%. But because of that, I was able to generate this new level of body awareness. And at 16, I was able to get, I had a doctor that really just like took me under his wing and actually helped educate me, knew that I had like a passion for this. And it, again, changed my mindset and addressed that fear. And he was actually a cardiologist that specialized in the nervous system. And I learned so much from this guy over the course of 3 years. And again, then went from 98 pounds over the course of a year to 175 and gained it back in a healthy way. Was drafted, ended up going down to college, played college hockey, ended up playing professionally.
And where'd you go to college?
UMass. And then,
nice. Excellent.
And then from there played in the Columbus Blue Jacket system for just a cup of coffee, and then decided to get into the coaching realm, where this is where like I could make a bigger impact. And at that point, again, got my master's degree in exercise physiology, went and got my massage therapy degree, went and got my sports nutrition license, went and got started working on my doctorate in heart rate variability and sleep recovery. While then diving into functional medicine space. And like all of this stuff was like, how do I bring the way in which we're broken in this world of understanding health and wellness, health optimization, performance recovery, and making it seamless, simple, and understandable. And in that whole journey, I felt like I had to go through it. I had to feel the highs, feel the lows, and to be honest, be a human and experience these things, while then being able to then parlay it into something that has been a very impactful career. Again, going from the University of Louisville, operating in their basketball programs, winning national championships, being a part of that, experiencing that, going from there, going to Miami of Ohio, running my own program from the bottom up, building out an entire sports performance and recovery division, and leading the charge there, getting 22 guys to the NHL over the course of 3.5 years, and then building a private camp for NHL guys, helping them learn what goes on internally so they can recover better. Down in Florida, we started with 8 guys, we were up to 75. And then getting my first chance in the NHL, from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Washington Capitals, ultimately to running a program in Anaheim with the Ducks, before ultimately leaving and starting to really dive in with entrepreneurs and executives. Going back to exactly what you said, is how many people, it's 2022, how many people have sat down December sometime, made their plans for 2022, have said, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is what I want to do. I've got a plan for January, Q1, Q2, Q3. I know exactly the steps I need to take. And they know the steps they need to take for their business. But the question is, are you prepared to handle what that is going to require? And when you ask yourself, are you prepared for that, what that's going to require? It's no longer, is the plan that you put in place good enough? You yourself is good enough. You have the capability to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the business that you have. But are you going to be able to be consistent enough? Are you going to be able to sustain the pace that's going to be required to obtain those goals? And once we start to understand that we are truly our only limiting factor, and that if we lead with self-leadership and we come at it from a personalized side of what's going on internally, what can I do to personally tweak myself 1% every single day to get 1% better every day, and have no doubts about it, have the utmost plan of what I need personally so that I can show up and give you more, that is how you win. And that is how you win consistently. That's how you win every day. And that's how you win repeatedly. And that's how those that ultimately climb the ladder so quickly, seemingly overnight, are able to do that. Is because they're consistent and they know how to look after themselves to be able to ultimately influence those around them.
Incredible. We are Infinity X with a stage and microphone for human excellence. We're joined by Justin Roethlingshoefer this evening. And any business owner who heard that message and isn't looking in the mirror right now to identify, did I put the metrics in? Am I prepared to execute on that plan going into 2022? My recommendation is you might want to have a conversation with Justin around that, because I think that there's accountability coaching that is plentiful and ready and waiting for you. Now, Justin, another question I have for you is, listen, with an NHL career and also the consulting that you did to, University of Louisville and Miami of Ohio and the Ducks and the Columbus Blue Jackets, I mean, that's at the highest level. There is no level higher than that, right? What was it about the culture in I'll call it the NHL and or at those specific teams that was appealing to you? But then part two to that question is, what drove you, or what were your telltale signs that drove you to pursue running your own business and running your own coaching program?
Yeah, it was, it's funny that you say that. I actually count those years in my life, the pinnacle years, where I was like, I'm at the NHL. Everybody would say you're living the dream. I call that actually like my ultimate failure, where I continued to find success without fulfillment. And I always realized there was more. There was something more. I wanted more. I wanted to impact more. And I was limited to the institution, which was the NHL, which was the NCAA, which was all of these guardrails that were put up to ultimately protect the institution and protect the business first and foremost, rather than the people who were running and operating it every day, which was the player. And there was a specific moment in my career where there was a couple things going on from a player development standpoint that I wasn't agreeing with, and that I really thought we needed to talk about and blow the whistle on a little bit. And I remember sitting in a boardroom. There was 4 or 5. There was the ownership team. There was the general manager, the director of player development. This is an NHL club. And they sat across from me, and we were going back and forth. And I said, do you not think it's our responsibility to stand up for the people we are working for and make sure we give them the best education information for them to make the decision for those men, for themselves? They're men. And they looked at me and they said, are you on our team or are you on theirs? And it was at that moment that I knew that I didn't work for the player, which in my mentality is who I worked for.
Right.
I worked for the business. And that was not a business I was willing to be in. And so when my values were compromised, the moment that I felt like I had to choose between my core values and what I was doing, I knew that that was the end. That's where I needed to take a step away. And it was a split-second decision. Off went my credentials, off went my badges, walked out the door, and that was the end of my NHL career. And it seemed really great at the time. It seemed like a great idea at the time, and then you woke up the next morning without a job, and you're like, okay, this is real.
Yeah,
And that's when I went back to again, I go back to that mentality of betting on myself and knowing that there's when you are driven by passion, when you are driven by fuel and a core belief that for me comes from God, for me comes from a faith-driven standpoint, that I know I will be in the place that I need to be when I'm called. And I consider myself an obedient soldier. Whatever I'm being told to do, I will not ask questions and I will act. And anytime I have followed that intuition, anytime I've answered that calling, I've never regretted any decision I've ever made. And that was the moment that Own It was formed. And I have not looked back since. And it's been amazing, an amazing journey. The people I've met, the team we've built, the parts of it we've sold, the way we've grown, the impact that we've developed, and the lives that we've changed.
Let's talk about Own It for a minute, but even before we get to that, we operate here. Epic Financial Strategies is a one-stop shop financial wellness center, right? We have multiple divisions. We do consulting, we do planning, we outsource in taxation. We do a number of different things from a consulting perspective for business owners, for high net worth individuals, and for a multitude of different investors in different ecosystems. I have operated personally in my career, Justin, in a couple of different spaces. I've operated in, a W-2 style leadership capacity, and I've operated in the consultative world, right, where we're independent planners. And there you obviously have a heck of a lot more control. But I remember personally, for me, when I finally had that tipping point of enough is enough, I refuse to work for somebody else and have that ceiling above my head, but also to have to play by their rules, quite frankly, and push and position financial instruments that, in my opinion, were not to the best benefit of the client. They were just pushing their own personal corporate agendas, if you will.
Yeah.
I just got fed up with that. I got fed up with my future being defined by other individuals, and I wanted to be able to define myself. With that being said, I remember vividly the day that I walked out of that one office to enter into the new arena and saying to myself, holy crap, did I do the right thing? Right. Because now nobody's writing my paycheck any longer. Now it's going to be me that's doing so. I also remember that the planning that went into that exit was, if I look back at it, a little bit haphazard. When you look at the time when you look at where you walked out of the last NHL office, right, or corporate office to enter into your own space, how much planning did you do leading into that, or was it truly spur of the moment?
Yeah, so I think it was a very natural progression to a certain extent, whereas the part that I didn't tell of the story is for about 3 years, I was working for the Ducks, and I was like, there has to be more. There has to be more to what's going on. And every year I would talk myself into, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you feeling sorry for yourself? You've got an amazing job. You're in a lot of people's dream seat. Like, shut up and just deal with it. And it was during that time that I actually went in one of the masterminds I was in. I went and saw Magic Johnson speak, and he was talking about how the last year in his contract, when he renewed, he got it built in with the Lakers that he would get the emails and phone numbers of every season ticket holder in the first 2 rows of the arena, and with the intention of going for lunch and learning from them, using them because obviously they're successful. They've got season tickets on the floor in LA to the Lakers. And who's going to turn down a lunch from Magic Johnson, right? So he goes and he's like, hey, I just want to be mentored by you. That's all I want. And so it spurred something in me. It's like, you know what? You're in a position, you're in a 3-letter league, take advantage of it. You know, you're on the road for about 80 to 90 nights a year. You should meet with 80 to 90 people. So for the next 2 years, I met with a different business person over those 80 to 90 days every year, and started to create a network, started to learn. And then ultimately, as I'm sitting there, they're going, so you're a performance coach for the Ducks, what do you do? And so I start talking about my methods, my methodologies, my practices, my understanding of genetics and cellular mutation and recovery and sleep optimization and energy. And lo and behold, about 100% of people I met with were like, so can you like do that for me too? Like, is that possible? Like, how do I take advantage of this? Because you're doing it for the best in the world. How can I do this for me? Because this is what I consider myself in my arena. I'm an athlete, but I'm an entrepreneur. I don't get paid to be an athlete, but I get paid to be an entrepreneur. So this is my arena. How can you help me? And so immediately I started to have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 clients that were operating in these different sectors. And they're like, you should be doing this here. This is the market. Don't work with just 25 guys. Work with everybody. Set a business up. No one's talking about this. No one's doing it. Guess what? And I'll go back to a word I said earlier, you are owning your different. You are different. You were built differently. You saw it from when you were 13 years old, from when your dad said the word consistent. You all of a sudden took it to a whole nother level and started to decide how to research this stuff and look this stuff up that can be now applied. That is owning your different. That is leaning into it. So how can you help with that? So that was that process for me up where I had something going. Now, did I know it was called Own It? No. Did I know what the business strategy was? No. Was I still a mumbled, jumbled mess on December 22nd of 2019? Yes. But it's over the last 3 years, it's completely changed in how this has all manifested. And ultimately, then following the callings and being open to it. And to be quite honest with you, it might sound crazy, but giving everything up to God and saying, hey, I've listened in every way, shape, and form, in every capacity that I have, except for my career up until this point. And my career is the only thing I'm not fulfilled in. So I guess I have to follow that path as well. And the moment that I did that, people came into my life, breaks happened, like when we signed our deal with Whoop to be the exclusive coaching partner with them, or when we sold part of our company off in our IP, I didn't know these people a week before they leaned in and said, hey, can you do this? Or one of them was our client that said, hey, we've been looking for this solution for a long time. Can you now do this for us as well? And so everything just kind of found its way and leaned in through a lot of hard work, a lot of consistency, and leaning into and owning what we knew was our different.
Incredible. If you have a question for Justin, you have to put it into the chat. He is dropping golden nugget after golden nugget. For those of you listening, if you don't put in, number one, exit strategy for what you're currently doing, but also if you're not doing forecasting of what your marketplace could look like and modeling after people who have been there, then done that, who better to model after than Magic Johnson, for God's sake, but if you're not modeling after people that have been there and done that and learning and being coachable in moving into an entrepreneurial environment, whatever that might be, you're setting yourself up for failure. And Justin certainly didn't set himself up for failure, as evidenced by where he is right now today. So we are Infinity X. You can catch us on We Are Infinity X YouTube replay, weareinfinityx.com, and We Are Infinity X Spotify podcast. And Justin, so let's talk a little bit about Own It now, right? So you move away, you launch the business. Tell us all a little bit about the structure of Own It, what the specialties are from a coaching perspective, and all the different value propositions that you introduce to entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah. So when we started, Own It was really a one-to-one coaching program. That's the way it operated, was helping to understand what was going on internally with each and every person so that they could grow their capacity to handle stress. How do you optimize stress? How do you turn stress that you're having into energy? And utilizing personalized gut biome, utilizing personalized cellular gene mutation, cellular nutrient deficiency, cellular glucose optimization, and ultimately to create long-term health and longevity. That's what it was all about. And it was great. People leaned in. It was really synergistic, and it helped take people to that next level. It wasn't until we brought one of our clients on and they transformed themselves. They're like, this is amazing. And they said, you know what, can you do this for my business? Can you do this for my team, my executive team? We're like, yeah, of course. So built it out, built that process. Then all of a sudden they said, well, our executive team has had so much success. Can you do this now for our 250 employees? And it was like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah. So
The answer is always yes. So it was
Right.
like, of course. Yeah, I can do this. And then we'll figure out how to get it done. So we delivered it. It was great, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is taking so much time. Well, all of a sudden we have 4 or 5 other clients that we had in this one-on-one program that said, hey, can you do this for our executive team? Sure. So we put it into their executive program. And lo and behold, one of the companies we were working with was an app company that builds apps, and they wanted to forever institute wearable technology into their platform, but did not know how to do it.
Wow.
Didn't have an expert.
Can I interject just one thing, or just one quick question, Justin? You mentioned do you have certified coaches on your team, or like how many coaches do you have in your platform?
Yeah, so we now have a executive team of 4.
Okay.
We have a medical board of 3, so a neurologist, a gut biome specialist, and then a naturopath. And so those 3 are on our medical board. And then under them, we have a team of 14 coaches, 9 on what we call outer energy, and then 5 with what we call inner energy. And so it's a combination of that mindset piece, understanding how do we level ourselves up, and then bringing the outer energy piece, which is the body. And so understanding that stress in our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. And so we have to account for all of that and being able to then understand. And so when I say we, that's who I was talking about. At the time, it was just myself and my fiance, who she was a vice president of Christian Louboutin for 6 years. And she came over to own it, believed in the concept, leaving a almost 7-figure job to come and impact people, and knowing that her job forever was building teams that won, and utilizing a lot of her practices and experience to do that, to run the inner energy team. I ran outer energy, she ran inner, and that was just her and I for a long time, until that team came along and said, hey, you know what? We need to figure out how to put wearable technology into our platform. You guys are the best at it. You need an app-based platform that scales. Can we buy own it? And we said, well, no, we're not going to sell own it, but we'll sell you the IP behind the controllables, the habits, and the understanding of how to utilize HRV as a stress optimizer, building capacity, handling it, and coming back to sustainable habit change that's personalized and habit driven to optimize consistency. They were like, okay, done. So we did that. We grew, we scaled. All of a sudden, Whoop, who is now Whoop, WHOOP.
Okay.
Yep. So Whoop Band, Aura Ring, you've heard of them all. Whoop just announced their $4.8 billion valuation based off of their last raise. Said, hey, we're a tech company. We're not a coaching company. Would you like to be we'd love to partner and figure out how to work together and be the exclusive coaching partner of Whoop. And so that started that relationship, which then brought us into athletics and working within NCAA programs and coach to coach models, and then a licensing model, and then all of these things that have now come. And so and then now we're running retreats. So Elise and I and our team operate 4 retreats a year in different settings: Tulum, Costa Rica, Mont Tremblant, Quebec, the Bahamas. that are all focused. And we say it's the only retreat in the world that's built for you, because it's based off of your actual personalized data, based off of all the personal chefs, the private chefs cook all your meals based on what you need nutritionally, so match deficiencies, your supplementation routines, all based upon that, what you need to do from a exercise, meditation, your one-on-one sessions are all based off of your one-on-one needs, so that when you leave those 4 days, you now have this personalized blueprint so that you can now go and execute and be the most consistent version of yourself. You can go execute to create sustainable habit change. And in doing so, it's not you're coming and meditating for 3 hours over the course of a weekend, because we come back to real life. That's not practical. We're not going to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis. That's why going to a retreat and then leaving, it's great for a week because you feel refreshed, but then you go right back to the old patterns. It's about changing and building something that's sustainable for you, which is why we say own it does not require you to come into our world, but rather own it comes into yours. And that is what allows us to create context independent situations for every single one of our clients, practitioners, users, because you're not dependent on a person, place, or thing. You're not dependent on something that worked for Tony or Carol, but rather something that specifically works for David and something that is built for David's life. And so that's what we're doing at the one-on-one level. It's what we're doing at the B2B level. It's what we're doing at our retreat level. And we have the team built and structured around that. And it becomes very personalized, very individualized, so that nobody falls through the cracks. You can prevent long-term chronic illnesses while also optimizing you in today's world, so that you can go and ultimately, again, accomplish exactly what you want to and leave the impact that you're going for.
It's incredible, Justin. This is Justin Roethlingshoefer. We are Infinity X, giving a stage and microphone to human excellence. And Justin, is your platform offered as a bundle, almost like a, call it an employee benefit style program? Like if I own a business and I have 100 employees, can I bundle this underneath my health insurance program or a cafeteria program or something of that nature? How do I adopt your coaching for not only myself and my key executives, but also my staff?
Yeah, exactly. So it's exactly that point where it becomes now a company-wide program that people get to opt into. They're not forced to use it. They're not forced to dive into it. If, for example, we brought on a 5,000 person or employee company, and their executive team went into our one-on-one coaching program. And then the rest of their employees had the option to opt into a company-wide program. They got their wearable technology. They had coaches that were assigned to that company that they could message and utilize throughout any given day to help guide them, educate them on what HRV was all about. And then there's a curriculum that's built out over the course of 12 months that they come in and actually do a live event monthly and operationalize that. And then they can get discounts through different testing parameters that they then have access to our concierge doctors and everything else to kind of work through and build through, and then again, drive habits back to that. And so that's what a lot of companies have done, is they've made it accessible. And then depending on who wants to lean in and who wants to utilize it, it's up to them. And so that's really what that B2B model looks like. That's been really effective, really positive, and impactful.
Incredible. Justin, offline, by the way, I would like to talk to you a little bit more around how that's bundled as an employee benefit. In terms of, certain different types of, financial / taxable offset, taxable write-off opportunities for business owners in that space. I'd be really interested to learn more around that, because I see massive value in that space, but that's an offline question, because I know we're not here to give tax or legal advice, right? But one thing I have noticed over the years, right? We have businesses of all different shapes and sizes, and business owners that we consult with, not only to them personally, but also directly to their business and their rank and file employees, of different verticals, right? In different market segments. One thing that I have always noticed, no matter what, is regardless of the business entity, or not entity, but the area of business that they operate in, manufacturing, whatever the case may be, whatever sector that they're in, employees that are walking into the building with, I'll use what I do and what we do here at my firm as an example. People that are walking into their job or the corporate environment with the lack of financial stress in their world, people who feel more financially free, financially fit, they're not walking in with financial matters on their mind, are more productive and are happier in the workplace, right? We see that all the time, right? Because I think finance is a massive, massive stress driver, right? Can you talk a little bit about, especially now in the world that we're operating in, can you talk a little bit about some of the stressors that you are seeing in the corporate workplace, whether it's financial or whether it's marital, or, some of the common reoccurring areas that you're finding that you have to give consistent attention and or coaching to?
It's an amazing question. And I want to back up even a little bit more and actually talk about what stress is, because a lot of people just are very confused about it. They're like, oh, I need a vacation, or, oh, I need a weekend away, or whatever it is. You can soundbite this one. Every single thing in our life is stress. It's a spectrum. That's all it is. So ass in the sand, feet in the water, margarita, sitting there is stress. Running through New York City in the rain, late for a meeting, your briefcase opens, can't get down a cab, like that is stress. Both of those situations are stressful. It's just on a different scale. That's all it is. And so think about our bodies as cups. And the bigger our cup is, the more capacity we have, the more of those New York style situations we can handle before we pop. And so the goal is to build capacity, but then also a system and strategy in which to eradicate whatever stress has come into our cup. And so the moment that we understand whether I'm sitting here talking to you in this interview as being stressed, or whether I'm going up after this and having a massage, both of those things are stressful. They're going to cause stress to my body at different levels. But there's still the next steps of how do I recover from those? How do I maximize that so that I can show up for whatever I'm expected to do tomorrow, which is I've got meetings I have to attend. I have a workout I need to do. I have a dinner meeting I have to go to. I have to travel across Miami. That is going to be stressful. There's all these things that I'm going to have to make sure that I can handle. And that's where we come back to the controllables, these 8 controllables that maximize capacity to grow. And I want you to picture 4 circles for a second. The outer circle is physical. The inner circle is mental. The inner circle of that is emotional. And the core is spiritual.
Wow.
If we do not have a big physical outer ability to handle more, and that can grow through sleep, nutrition, hydration, immune function, environment, mindset, self-care, and activity. If we do not have a big outer core, it stifles the growth mentally, spiritually, and emotionally.
Yeah.
Think about it as a concrete outer circle. And that outer shell, if it is not big, we cannot handle the capacity. So all of a sudden, that's why people go away to the lake and think they've got a family, they're going to go to the lake. And they're like, I was at the lake all weekend with my kids, but I come back and I don't feel rested. Well, because everything you did over the course of the weekend was still stressful.
So yeah, sure.
It's still stress. There's nothing in this world that is not stress. Nothing. And everything starts to accumulate. And so we have to take that into consideration, which is why heart rate variability and HRV, which is your body's way of communicating to you how it's adapting to the stress and strain that you're placing on it, is a crucial number to understand. To say, am I adapting positively or am I adapting negatively? What dials can I start pulling on to make sure that I am going to adapt positively. So you come back to that question that you asked as to what areas of stress are completely and continually being brought forward. It's not because your marriage is poor. It's not because your kids are bad. It's not because you are financially inept and that's causing stress. No, it's self-leadership. It comes back to you. It comes back to awareness of what's going on. Everything else is circumstantial. And those circumstances can all be overcome. Those circumstances can all be adjusted. But if we don't change the core entity of what is happening within us, which is that stress component, we're going to be in that same situation, whether we're making 100 grand a year or we're making 100 million a year. We're going to be in that situation, whether we're married to the love of our life or whether we made a mistake at marriage. We're going to be in that same situation, whether we have the best kids in the world that sleep through the night, or we have poor kids that wake up 3 times a night asking for us. None of those, they're all circumstantial, and none of those things truly we can control at the end of the day. It comes down to what can we control, because there are controllables in this world. They have to do with those 8 controllables that I just talked about. What can we control? And then what can we control within that matters to us personally, from a cellular, from a DNA, from a personalized structure, so that we can be the most consistent version of us every single day.
That's incredible stuff right there. I mean, Justin, oh my God. We are Infinity X, giving the stage and microphone to human excellence. We're with Justin Roethlingshoefer here, and he is just absolutely laying it down. Define the problem in solvable terms. You know, Justin, we always, in my world, I say this all the time to my clients, you know, like we will introduce financial instruments, right? Insurances, and, you know, we have a wealth management division as well, et cetera. And those are financial, we call them, you know, they're financial products, right? But I refer to them as byproducts, right? Insurance is a solution based upon an identifiable issue, right? And that issue, right, is solved via process. The financial solution that comes, or the product that is introduced there, is a byproduct of the identification of that solution, right? And so when you're on an intake, as an example, with a client, right, whether whomever that they are, and you identify that finance, which is obviously one of the biggest stressors that you know, Americans face, you know, especially, look, inflation's at freaking like 10% right now. It's out of control, you know, so there's a lot of economic challenges that we have right now. So I would imagine that a lot of people are feeling economic challenge. When the finance piece is one of the key stressors that is introduced or that you diagnose, outside, you know, it is out through that process of talk a little bit around, you know, okay, you've identified, or that the problem is, you know, financial stress, right? And it's because of X, Y, and Z. Do you put them onto a specific style of program for, I'll call it, recovery from that? Do you outsource education? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So when you come down to it, that's where, for us, it becomes the combination of inner and outer energy. And that's where the inner energy component becomes so heavy. If you looked at that person that has financial stress, and I love this because it has never failed. If you look at this person that has financial stress, I guarantee you, they probably don't sleep well.
No.
They probably don't eat well.
No.
They probably don't hydrate properly. They probably don't care about their body and exercise in an appropriate way. Their environment around them is probably poor. Their relationships probably don't work. They probably get sick often. Their immune function isn't operating at the highest level. And they probably have a really poor mindset.
All these different byproducts, right? Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And so you come back to it, and it's just the way in which it's manifesting in you. That's all it is. It's showing up in a different way. It's no different than when someone comes to us that has diabetes, and then 8 months later, their pancreas has magically turned back on and they no longer use insulin. It's no different than the mom that has had 4 miscarriages, and after working with us for 18 months, she has a new baby boy. It's no different than the husband and wife who are on the verge of divorce, and the father, after working with us for 8 months, they're on fire again. It just comes back to a systematic process of you and your core. And that's why that inner energy component is so key, is because it's a new age of awareness. It's a new understanding. It's a new self-leadership component and understanding where we go. I want to give an analogy here for a second. And it's, if you think of a house, okay, and I have no problem. I have a hard time with the health and wellness industry a little bit, because everything's like, this product is going to solve your problem. This product is going to solve your problem. Cold plunging, solve your problems of the world. Sauna, heat therapy, going to solve the problems of the world. Keto diet, going to solve the problems of the world. High intensity interval training, going to solve the problems of the world. I can keep going on forever.
Sure.
All those tools are awesome, but that's all they are, is tools. It's like buying a house and saying, this couch is going to make your house a home. So I go and buy this beautiful $50,000 couch. I put it in my house, and I've got nothing in my house but a couch.
Right.
That's not a home. It's the carpet, it's the banister, it's the TV, it's the pictures, it's the couch, it's everything in the kitchen. Yeah. Everything together, combined in the right combination, makes that house a home. And certain things may be a focal point, but they don't exist without everything else. Sure. And so when you come and you say, I have a financial stress or issue, okay, awesome. That's great. I always say, like, hey, I have this problem. Awesome. That's great. Let's figure out what the root is.
Yeah.
Let's not play at this part of the pyramid. We want to play at this part of the pyramid. We're going to play like everybody else.
Yeah.
And we don't, at Own It, and the people that facilitate with us or operate or hang out with us, we don't operate in average, because we're here to be great. And we're here to be that 1%. We're here to own our different. And that's why we exist. And so we play at the bottom of the pyramid, because we're going to get rid of actually what's happening, to the root of problems, and make sure that they don't exist 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the way, and just continue to put band-aids on bullet holes, or a piece of Scotch tape on a piece of broken cement and expect it to come back together. But actually get to the root of what's going on. Understand that it begins with you. Understand that there's nothing wrong with you, but rather we have to understand what personalized habit changes need to occur for those outcomes to come back to us. Because financial, where you live, the vacations you take, how much money you make, the relationships you have, those are all outcomes that we have zero control over. And when we focus on those, we're focused on the wrong things, because we're forgetting about what we can control. And the moment we come back to those, we personalize those, we figure out what matters to you, not me, but matters to you. That is when your life changes.
Incredible stuff, Justin. This is Justin Roethlingshoefer. We are Infinity X, stage and microphone for human excellence. And Justin, last question, because we're coming up on the top of the hour, and I want to be in integrity of your time. And I can't, first and foremost, I can't even begin to thank you enough for sharing this stage tonight. The message is unbelievable. And in so many different areas, peak performance, identification of root challenges, et cetera. It's just been one of the best conversations that I've been fortunate to have. We've been running Infinity X now for about 2 years. And so, just really, really, really super powerful stuff. I can't wait to watch the replay. My last question, of course, brother. Absolutely. No, I appreciate you. My last question is, what's next for Justin? Like, where are you going? What's next? What does the next 5 years of your world look like?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's really, we're in scale mode. We are in full-fledged scale mode to reach as many people as we can. We've built our team now between Own It app that was purchased by Max One and Own It Coaching. We're at a team of about 35. And so as we continue to grow, as we continue to scale, as we become, we're in the process of closing a pretty major deal with a Power Five conference
Nice.
in the NCAA. But again, it comes back to, it's not about performance. It's about treating these athletes as people, as real people, and caring about what happens after the 4 years and creating that habit change for them so that they now have the tools, strategies, and systems in place of what is next. How do you do that? How do you take that to the next level? And so, to answer your question, it is continuing to scale, continuing to impact, continuing to grow, while staying true to myself, my values, and building out and building out my family.
Yeah, and Justin, that there's so many things to dissect with what you just said that I'm really interested in also connecting with you offline. Because I mean, I've talked to a number of different former NFL football players, and we have former athletes that are clients of ours. And one of the things that has been consistent in their messaging is that they would love to see the financial literacy and business literacy, et cetera, scaled upward, for the professional athlete as they prepare for, a retirement at 25 years old, right? Or a retirement at 35 years old. You still have a long runway to go. So I'm excited to learn more of your opinion and your mastery in that space. But I'm sorry that I do have one more question, but I have to ask this. What state are you in public speaking as well? Are you speaking on stages, or what are some stages that you're looking to speak upon?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's a big part of our plan for 2021, 22. 21, I had a lot of them were virtual. I was able to get back on about 10, 15 different stages in 2021. But 2022, the goal is to grace no less than 30 stages throughout this year. So looking at about 2 a month. So happy to have anybody out there who's looking to have me on a stage. I'd be more than happy to chat and look at how we make that happen.
I'm excited to co-create with you, Justin, because between what you're up to in the world, what we are up to in the world here at Epic, and some of the ecosystems that we have exposures to, I think that there's some pretty neat and dynamic things that we could take a look at. This is Justin Roethlingshoefer. Justin, one more time, drop it out to the group. How do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me in 2 places. Make it simple. You can come to my Instagram page at Justin Roth, or simply go to ownitcoaching.com. And we have a very responsive team from there that will always make sure everything gets to me.
Ownitcoaching.com and at Justin Roth. Justin, I got to tell you, you're a mega power, brother. I have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's conversation. I love what you're up to. I see you in our future. And, I think you're just up to just really, really special things that I would love to be a part of in one way or another. So Happy New Year to you, brother. And I really want to thank you for spending some time with us tonight on Infinity X.
David, I appreciate you and the platform, and really look forward to what we can develop and build here in 2022.
Outstanding. Folks, this is Justin Roethlingshoefer. We Are Infinity X. Replay available. We Are Infinity X YouTube. We Are InfinityX.com. We Are Infinity X Spotify podcast. Once again, this has been Justin Roethlingshoefer. Justin, thank you so much for this evening. And folks, until next week, we are signing off for another episode of We Are Infinity X. Justin, have a wonderful night, brother. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us tonight.
I appreciate you.